Hello everyone! So this time I would like to share a video on posing in CLO3D. This is hands down one of my favorite aspects of digital fashion. I really enjoy creating custom poses for my 3D artwork. So I decided to create this video to kind of share my thought process, my process in CLO, and hopefully you can pick up some tips from this video. Basically, the reason why I really enjoy creating my own custom poses is that I think, especially if you create 3D fashion artwork, digital fashion artwork, I think if you want to create a certain composition and communicate a certain feeling and atmosphere, it's very important that every element has their own kind of meaning, so to say. Maybe not meaning, but their own ability to communicate this atmosphere. And then when you put all these elements together, then your idea is communicated very, very well, and you don't have to write long texts of explanation what you're trying to say through your artwork. And I'm not saying I'm artist. I'm definitely not artist. I've never gone to art school. I haven't even gone to fashion design school. My background is very technical. I'm pattern maker. So as studying as pattern maker, you know, I wasn't really exposed too much to the artistic parts of fashion. So actually I am recently just trying to discover what does it mean to be a designer, what does it mean to being an artist. And yeah, recently as I am creating these me time projects, I more and more understand the meaning of every element in my artwork, and I also look at other people's artwork and I also try to see how they create it and what different elements communicate. And very often I find that it's very confusing. The artwork doesn't speak to me in a clear way because there can be some disconnect between like the pose and the outfit. Maybe it doesn't go together, or you know, there's a lot of happening in the composition. So yeah, that's why for my own work, I really think about it. I don't think I always can achieve it anyway, because yeah, I'm still work in progress very much. But this is something I definitely pay attention to quite a lot. And posing, I think it's also a very challenging thing to make an avatar, which is not a live human being. It's very difficult to make it look natural. And with the posing, that small little details that you do in a pose can really distinguish unnatural and natural. And I cannot say I always can achieve the natural look of the pose with the avatar, but that's one thing I pay attention to quite a lot. And sometimes pose development can take up to a day. Because there is just, I'm looking at the pose and I just can't find that small element that makes my avatar look stiff or unnatural. I think recently I start to achieve better result, and it's also very good motivation, and you know, I find it very kind of fun and exciting to work on poses. Yeah. Anyway, so let's jump into the actual work, and I will kind of explain step by step how I do these things. So first of all, when I start on a project, I already have some kind of idea of what kind of pose I want to create together with the outfit. Of course, throughout the work in CLO, and I think that's one of the best things, is that even though I start with an idea 100%, it will be very, very different at the end. Because while I'm changing the pose, while I'm changing the garment, I come up with new ideas. Like, oh, I thought at first this would look good, but actually this looks better. So, you know, I'm kind of developing and making my pose, making my work kind of, I think, more deeper. So I can achieve, I think, much better compositions if I deeply think about what I'm doing. And with the poses, that's absolutely the same process. I don't take pictures from like internet or something and make the exact pose. I do use a lot of inspiration from, for example, fashion editorial photos from high fashion brands because they have very beautiful editorials, very beautiful compositions, and those are the things that I learn from the most. And they use very creative poses. I really like that aspect too. So I definitely get inspiration from there, and then kind of in my mind I try to visualize what pose would go together with the outfit that I want to make. But then at the end, you know, it always kind of looks a bit different. Yeah. So while I'm talking here, I've been showing, you know, some of the work that I've done with different poses. You can kind of see a little bit behind the scenes stuff, and I'm definitely one of those people who, when they create file just for like one render to put on Instagram, like my file is a mess except for that part that will be visible in the render. Yeah, so it's always kind of interesting to see the actual behind the scenes of those projects that we can see on Instagram. Like the final image is so beautiful, but then, you know, the background maybe is a mess. I don't know, maybe I'm the only person who lets the file be super messy. Not sure. Yeah. Anyway, so that was about choosing the pose and thinking about the composition. So as you can see in my work, I mostly just focus on working in CLO. For now, I'm not really putting a lot of other elements into it because I really want to develop my kind of skill in composition in CLO when it comes to clothing and the avatar and posing. And then once I feel I have achieved certain level that I want, then I will of course go into and expand my composition with like 3D other 3D objects, putting in 3D objects, and, you know, creating like these big scenes. But so far I'm mostly focusing on outfits and posing. Yeah. So the next step is, of course, creating the outfit, and I will kind of show you in this project. So I have a very basic dress, and for the most part I don't finalize the outfit until the highest quality. I put everything on like particle distance 10 and stuff like that, make sure it looks it is stable. I usually do put all the double layers and all that stuff, so it's kind of semi-final but not final quality, because if you put everything on particle distance 5 and you finalize everything, then changing poses, that will be super painful. And then another thing that I don't really do much is simulate the garment and then move things while the garment is simulated, just because of these kinds of things. So yeah, it's very rarely I do it, but in very rare occasions. And then for posing, it's very important to switch off the collision of the buttons, because that can really mess up your outfit, especially if you have layers. That's a nightmare. And then also I would advise to keep additional thickness collision to 2.5 because it will keep your layers more stable. And then once the pose is fixed, you can put it on like the high quality settings. Yeah, high quality settings. Yeah. So basically what I do is I don't simulate the garment, but then I start just working with the pose. Like, for example, let's do some hands in front. I do change the pose in this view sometimes, not always, because it is kind of skeleton look. It's a little bit difficult to really imagine how it's going to look with the outfit and everything, and whether that looks natural. So changing pose in this view, it helps a little bit, because I think when you change, especially the hands, it doesn't allow so much like deformation of the avatar. But usually I change pose in this view. So I change to human IK, or whatever they call it. Human IK? Show X-ray joints. Yeah. Show X-ray joints with Shift X. Then I click on the joint and I press Shift X again, and then I can just use this gizmo. And I really like to use it like this because it's much easier to understand where what goes and how it looks. So yeah, this is kind of my go-to thing. And for this, I usually change the screen coordinate. With world coordinate is a bit difficult. But I think you can also use the local coordinate, which, if I remember correctly, is pretty much the same as human IK as the used in this view. But I do prefer using the screen coordinate, especially for hands. Okay, let's see. And one thing that really makes your pose natural is hand and finger position. So I worked in a big company where we use 3D in product development. So we work with a lot of designers and a lot of people who are not designers, decision makers, managers, people like that, and people who have no kind of experience or knowledge in 3D. And you know, you would be surprised how many times people point out the hands of the avatar. The hands of the avatar always somehow is like the biggest eyesore for people. So it is really important to keep the hands naturally relaxed, and for example, not like in this way, and try to make the fingers, yeah, look more relaxed and not so kind of stiff. And I think with CLO avatars it's a little bit difficult because they really don't have the best hands, and the fingers sometimes look quite thick. And also for men's avatars, just the hands are so huge. I don't know, the people usually, like the people that I work with usually complain a lot about the hands. And for example, look at this finger. I mean, it is not good at all. But that's why I prefer working with those avatars for my fun projects, because, and you know, this is not a cute finger. Yeah. And for hands, that's for sure that I always use this, because in human IK it's quite difficult to really see whether your finger position is good or not. I think in this view it's much easier. Yeah, so moving like that. I will just try to make the fingers a little bit more relaxed. And you can see I go back and forth all the time. It might get a little bit annoying at some point, especially working with fingers. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I can't continue. But then, you know, you want those nice fingers so people don't complain, so you have to put in the work. Yeah, something like that. I will move this a little bit down. This now kind of looks a bit strange. And it really is in the detail. If one finger looks strange, your whole hand will look strange. So one finger can do a lot of damage. So if you're really into custom posing, I think this will be one of the things you will spend the most time getting the fingers right. Okay, that already looks much better. And let's just move this down. And this part I really don't like, it always goes inside the body. I will do the pose change, so if I move like this, it will not be reflected in the pose change. So in pose change, I think only like the position achieved by rotating is reflected. So yeah, we'll check later. Yeah. So the overall look of the hand, I will adjust. I really like to change the position of shoulders because that can help you make a more kind of relaxed look. I really like creating a little bit asymmetry in the body, a little bit of twist, and these are the little things that can help you make your pose more relaxed and more natural, because when the poses are 100% symmetrical, very straight, very like perfect, then you know it also takes the realism away from your pose a little bit, I think. What do I want to do with this? Maybe I want to open it like this. I usually don't do it like that. And one good thing when you work with hands is try to look at your own hands, make the same pose, look at your own hands and look how your fingers are positioned when you relax your hand. That is super helpful. And that's pretty much something I always do. Like my hand does not look like this when it's relaxed, that's for sure. Yeah. And that's so kind of rounded, but these fingers are not very bony, so yeah, it does not often look that realistic. Yeah, something like this. Anyway, I will not go so much into detail, well, but I think you got the point. So basically this is now my new pose, right? So what I always do, I save this as a pose, and then I have the special folder, and I create a new file, pose 1. And then I just undo. That's why I really like the endless undo option in CLO. Like you can go back as far as you want. Well, actually, this is not very good use of time. I just realized I could have just made a 3D state before making a pose. I think that's a pretty good way how to share time, because of course undoing forever makes, yeah, not a good way to do things. Well, I guess I learned a new thing today as well. So if you don't know about this, then you can create a 3D state. And then, yeah, if you make that pose, you can just open the history, double click on the 3D state, and the history will be deleted, of course, but at least you can go back very easily. Okay, and now I will just open the pose, and it very nicely goes in the pose. So this is my favorite aspect. So while the avatar is getting into the pose, the garment does not mess up so much, and I do the posing gradually. For example, you know, this is kind of the first step of the pose I wanted to make, but once the avatar goes into the pose, obviously I want to adjust it. So then I go the second phase. Maybe I want her to do a little bit like this, maybe some leg out. That's kind of phase 2. And then I again save as pose, and then I just rewrite this pose. Undo, and open pose. So I do this a lot, but I found that it's quite important to do it in phases, because you create one pose, it doesn't mean it will, your first try will be the best for the outfit or the best for the render view. So I really like to do it step by step several times, and then also during this process I can work on my garment a little bit. Maybe I find something, oh, I want to add this or that, or you know, I can help the simulation make sure that my garment does not get messed up. And it's just, it seems like you're doing extra work, but at the end you actually save time, because your garment is not getting messed up, and you get more, like, you get better, well thought result. That's why I really like this kind of step-by-step method. And another thing that I do for my fun projects, I usually do one render. For example, in this case, like I kind of had an idea of what angle I want to make the image from, and so I usually focus on that angle. So for example, I have like several custom views here, so I didn't know which one exactly was the best one, so I tried many, and then once I landed on the custom view, of course I tried to make the pose the best possible from this custom view. So whenever I finish some pose adjustment, I always go to custom view, I go into render, do the render preview, and make sure that everything looks great and exactly how I imagined, and also that the quality is good. So it's kind of like back and forth work. So it's not just like, oh, I create the pose, I change the pose, and my artwork is done. No, it's like it's really a lot of adjusting, especially like the fingers in this case. I mean, it's not really perfect. I do like when I want to communicate that the hand is touching the body or the clothes. I really want to make sure that it's actually touching it. But in this case, like it's not really visible, so I didn't pay much attention, and I didn't adjust the fingers so that they actually touch the avatar, because I kept on changing this hand because I needed some space between the chest area, because that was like messing up my whole silhouette. Yeah, so custom posing, that's a lot of work, definitely, but I think it's at the end you get a very beautiful result that really fits your kind of intention. And another thing that I really like to do is change the head pose, like little twists, changing the direction where the avatar looks, things like that. I think that refreshes the pose as well and gives it kind of more dynamic. And whenever it comes to walking poses or like dynamic poses that you feel like the avatar is walking or running or doing stuff like that, I really like to also make sure that this dynamic movement is also kind of visible in the garment. Otherwise, if you have a running avatar but the garment is very still and there's no movement, you know, it already looks very fake and not real. So it's very important to understand these little things, and well, they can bring you to the next level of realism. That's what I say. You don't have to do it. You can use the default poses also from DAZ. For DAZ avatars, there's so many poses you can use, and that's good result as well. But I think when you add your own extra work to the pose and your own extra idea, then I think that really helps to bring your pose and your whole composition to better quality. Yeah, one thing I can suggest as well is when you have a pose idea, make sure you go in front of a mirror and make the pose and really look at yourself, how your hands look, how your body looks, how it's twisted, how the asymmetry is happening, you know, what's your leg position and so on. So it's very, very important to just, you know, look at yourself and look at your own body parts and just research it. And looking at images of fashion editorials, that can really be great way of creating natural poses. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think these are all my special secrets, and as you have learned by watching this video, there's no secret. My secret is that there's no secret. Just have to, you know, work and do many iterations to get the best pose. That's what I believe. Yeah, anyway, I hope that this video was somewhat useful, and because I really enjoy poses and seeing custom poses made by other 3D artists and fashion designers, I hope you can create some nice poses and use some tips from my video, and I hope to see your work as well. And if you have any questions or you have some problems with posing and you need some advice, please feel free to send me a message. You know, I'm happy to answer and I'm happy to help you out. Yeah, so thank you very much for watching, and yeah, have a good day. Bye!